Are you a consultant or maybe thinking about becoming one? Well, billable hours, that's the easiest way of selling your time. But did you know that you will never be able to sell 100% of your time, or that essentially billable hours, they put a cap on your earnings? As a co-founder of EFIHub and a consultant eating my own medicine because I'm using a product we created to track all my time, I'm about to do a rundown about all the pros and cons / reality check of this method of selling your time. All this will be dipped in my personal experience, which was sometimes bitter. But basically, the whole idea is you can learn from my mistakes and maybe you can tune something in your current consulting business, or you can just figure out how to start on a better note. Keep on watching. And by the way, I'll also try to show you how you can be in full control of your earnings. Let's start with the cons / reality check. As I said, you will never be able to bill 100% of your time. It's simple. You still have to use some time to pay the taxes. You have to do some bookkeeping. You have to invoice things. You have to use some time for time registration and so on. So you can optimize this by using, for example, EFIHub. That is gonna cut a lot of slack from these activities. But that's the thing. You won't be able to bill for 100% because nobody's going to pay you for running your own company. And when you come to that, there is also something where you can measure a performance, and this is called a utilization rate. Basically, a good utilization rate in the consulting business is something between 30 and 50%. I can tell you that so far I'm at around 44%, which is a very good value. The big consulting houses, they actually run for 80%, which is kind of like a ridiculous value. But to be honest, in a lot of the things that they do, they also bill for almost everything. They use some very specialized time padding techniques and so on. It's a good idea to keep a tab on your utilization. I calculate two numbers. The first one is my weekly utilization and monthly. So this way I have actually an idea where I am financially, and this gives me a peace of mind. And also I have some days where I do absolutely no billable work. If I was taking a look on just the day, that would be very depressing because that would be like my utilization would be zero. And of course, in order to be able to calculate your utilization, you have to be able to track your time. And of course, the tracking of non-billable time, in this case, is essential. I do this in a simplified way. I track 100% of my billable time. And then of course, I have my weekly goal. I have to work for 45 hours. And by doing some math, of course, from here I can very easily get to the number that I want. What if I register some non-billable time in EFIHub? Well, of course, that time is getting subtracted from the overall non-billable time that I have in my week, which I get by subtracting, of course, the full amount of hours minus billable time. Selling your time by the hour puts actually a cap on your earnings. That's true, because my week, it's 45 hours. If I was able to sell 100% of my time, then that's going to be 45 hours times 4 weeks. Well, you can do the calculation, times my hour rate. This is the cap on my earnings. Now remember, not everybody is interested in scaling their income into some funny amounts. So a lot of people are actually just happy when they get the money they want because they are consultants or freelancers, because it allows them to have a certain lifestyle or something like that. In my case, it's a mixture. I would like to have control on my earnings and I scale them. That's why I also do something on the side, which is the startup EFIHub. And it allows me also to hold a certain lifestyle because I'm traveling a lot, I have family in different countries, and I work a lot remote. This is probably the most bitter experience which I have with the billable hours. And you have to remember that whenever you start working with a new customer, you have to perform a credit check. If you don't do this, you don't know in what condition a given company is, and you don't really know whether they're going to pay your invoice once you're done with your task. I'm saying this because I just did the calculation yesterday. I lost this way something around 6,000 euros, and This isn't a very huge amount if you take into account all the years I've been working for, but this could be easily avoided. If I knew that all this information is available online and it's for free, probably I wouldn't even bother starting up with some of those customers, because as it turned out, they didn't have the money to pay me. How about the disagreements? Well, it's a good idea, and this is again my experience, to have some form of contract anyway. When you do any work for a customer, you just have to show them this before you start working for them and get a confirmation that they accept it. That in case there is some kind of disagreement about the work you did, that all the work that they agree upon, it's going to be paid for you, and only the amount which is reserved for the stuff that you argue about is going to be withheld. This is something that is going to help you survive, especially when you have a bigger project and you need some liquidity, because you have, for a given moment, put a lot of eggs in one basket. Your hour rate. Well, I'm not going to tell you how to establish your hour rate. There is plenty of fantastic guides on the internet, and I definitely encourage you to do this lesson and go through them, start this spreadsheet, calculate everything, and figure out the hour rate that you need. This is going to save you hours of frustration, and later on it's going to probably save you from burnout and from just dumping everything. Time padding. This is also something that you have to be aware of, and this is something you have to probably discuss with your customers, and this should be a part of the standard contract. That means when you do something and it takes only 7-8 minutes, and this can happen when you work by the hour, what do? Do you just bill for the 7-8 minutes, or do you maybe bill for the 15 minutes? Why should you bill for the 15 minutes? Well, simply because whatever you do, even if you clock it in the most fair way, there's probably going to be some penalty involved because you switch the context. In my line of business, programmers, IT consultants, for us, context switching actually takes a lot of energy. There's a very interesting article written by Paul Graham. It's about the maker's schedule and the director's schedule. We work according to the maker's schedule, and as I said in one of my previous videos, sometimes even 2 meetings on one afternoon can destroy the whole day, and we have to really arrange our day in a way that it fits the length of the tasks. So time padding here is crucial, because if you don't pad, you're going to be essentially losing money, and your non-billable time, it's going to be increasing. What's the other thing about the padding? Well, if you take a look on the invoicing software, most of the invoicing software, you will probably invoice full hours. I'm very sorry, it's very cold here, probably -16 at this point. So when you invoice, and the unit of invoicing is 1 hour. And a lot of programs for invoicing, they just have 2 decimal points when it comes to the hours. And of course, when you pad to the nearest quarter, then you have no problem, because 15 minutes, that's going to be 0.25, half an hour, it's going to be 0.5, 3/4, that's going to be, and of course the full hour is going to be 1. No issues. Why am I telling you this? Well, because in the beginning I did the mistake and I didn't figure out that those 2 decimal points can be actually important. So before I figured that out, I lost a little bit of money on actually calculating my invoices in the wrong way. So I definitely recommend you not repeating my mistake and having a pad of 15 minutes. Some people do the 10-minute, but this doesn't really work with the decimal scale. Some people do half an hour, which I think it's borderline. And of course, anything above this, at least in my book, that's going to be just, greed. Okay, let's talk about the positives of billable hours. The first one is, well, it's extremely easy, because you can basically start doing this by using just pen and paper. But I don't recommend doing that. If you take a look on some of my previous videos where I actually talk a lot about the, writing down the obvious things, and some of those are actually, writing the time you use on tasks. I'm using FEHub, and this way I'm saving a lot of time. Not only when it comes to registering the metadata, which is, for example, I'm working for a customer, I'm writing immediately what I'm doing there, the system remembers the date. I can mark for which customer I'm doing this work, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of things I don't have to think about, and they are kind of like collected for me automatically. And the last thing is invoicing. I remember when I was doing my first invoice, I was actually completely depressed because it took me a lot of time when I had to click all those lines because my customers wanted to have a itemized bill. And you know, just after that I wrote simple software that automated that. Today we have this in EfiHub. So basically all my invoicing, regardless of the amount of customers and tasks that I have, it actually doesn't take more than 15 minutes. And I remember at the days when I was working 100% as a consultant, even huge bills for many customers that I have had at a time, I was like maximum 15 minutes and everything was done and no questions asked because everything is there on paper. And believe me, some invoices were like 16, 17 pages long. The good thing about billable hours is that it can be used also to test new customer relationships, because basically you just agreed on something you have to do and you're getting paid by the hour. You do this, you get paid, and that's it. Maybe you see next time, or maybe you don't see next time. You can also do a trick. Instead of providing a free, for example, consultation as part of the marketing, you can actually provide one time only, half an hour, 45 minutes discussion where you charge some discounted hour rate, and this way the customer has a chance of trying you out. What I'm asking is that you don't do this completely for free, because a lot of people are going to sign up and sometimes you're going to solve their problems already there. And you know, I also figured out that when something is for free, people don't really value it. A lot of customers I was working with, they actually come from somebody else, or maybe multiple consultants where they didn't have such a good experience and so on. And just telling them that, well, I cannot give you no cure, no pay, but I can give you 1 hour at this discounted rate and I can show you what I can do, and then you be the judge. Another thing, when you do some work for a customer and you're paid by the hour, 3 letters, SLA, service level agreement. Remember, when you do something for a customer, you don't have any SLA in place. And SLA can be translated into reaction time. So when you do something for a customer and there is a problem, they call you. You usually try to fix the problem immediately, because you know that, of course, this can put a strain on your relationship and so on. But remember, actually, you're not obliged to do this. What I'm saying is that you shouldn't actually burn your customers by not helping them when they really need it, especially if the error that is occurring is yours. But have the discussion about an SLA, saying that, well, you can drop everything else and help them, but this is going to cost a little bit extra. And this is a normal practice because, yeah, again, somebody's destroying your day. Probably you have some other deadlines, you will have to work late evening, whatever. Have this discussion before it happens, not after. A good thing about billable hours is that I might be lost. Oh, I have some animal tracks here. Well, now I'm following most likely a deer, but anyway, another thing is that billable hours, that means there's no biting. And there is no biting. Your customer can say goodbye to you immediately, and you can say goodbye immediately to your customer. In the beginning, probably you will be more interested in keeping your customer because, of course, you would like to have some income and stuff like that. But believe me, as the time passes, you get more and more customers. You go through multiple projects. There are situations where you will figure out that, well, working for a given customer is no longer funny, or you have a wrong rate, or for any other reason you just would like to let go of that customer. Then, of course, with billable hours, it's very simple, because you can just on a day-to-day basis say goodbye. And it's also very attractive for the business owners because they can regulate their spending by also letting you go immediately. That's why your hour rate should never match the hour rate of full-time employees. It should be much higher, because a full-time employee, of course, usually has some kind of terms of leave in place. And another thing, We have also something that I mentioned before, which is a form of a contract, but it's not really a contract. Basically, I would call it general terms of sales. In Danish, it's called salgs- og leveringsbetingelser, which roughly translates to terms of sales and delivery. And these are just the general rules that you have in your company when you do any kind of work. And as my lawyer said to me at some point, it's a good idea to present it to your customer before you do any kind of work and get actually the customer to say that, well, I have read and understood the terms that you have given to me, should it end in the courtroom. So, but this is basically a very important thing to have, and I recommend that you actually get those in place before you start doing any consultancy work for anyone. Okay, and so we have the last thing, which is some people like to color their timesheets. And when I mean color, they would like to add some virtual minutes, you know, increase the time consumption and so on. Believe me, I never do this, but I was involved in many situations where I was supposed to find occurrences of that. It's actually very easy. And sooner or later, this will come up and will end your relationship in a bad way. And believe me, even though the world is very big, it's actually at the same time very small. People do talk with each other, and if you get a label of a dishonest consultant, this can burn you. Work for your brand. Be honest. Work for your brand. Be honest. Work for your brand. Be honest. So we are done with the billable hours. This is the easiest and the most flexible way of selling your time. What can I tell you? Well, if 14 years ago I could see my videos, or actually this video, that would save me a lot of stress, a lot of tears, a lot of money. But this is not the case. So use my experience and don't repeat my mistakes. The other thing is also that in my previous videos, I was talking about writing things down, the obvious ones, in a very smart way. This is also something I recommend to you, because when it becomes your second skin, it will actually allow you to open a flow, and then you will see your work, you're going to be much more efficient. Because what's very important is that you are efficient and you're motivated in the things that you're doing. If you ask me what is my secret ingredient when I advertise and sell my time to my customers, I'll probably tell you this thing. I sell them my passion, I sell them my experience, and I sell them my way of attacking the problems and just not giving up. And I think the thing that spans all that, I'm very authentic in what I'm doing, and I'm actually also trying to be 100% honest when I do this. And this really builds a solid foundation in your personal brand. So that's it. I encourage you, if this is the lifestyle you want, if you want to be the master of your own paycheck, definitely do this. And remember, do it the smart way. Check FE Hub, check my previous videos where I said about writing the obvious things in a smart way. And good luck.